Welcome to our deep dive into the Bellingham housing market. You've shared some Redfin data with us, and we're here to help you make sense of it all. We'll be looking at real-time insights and trends, and even things like climate risk.
That's right.
All the juicy details you need to get a handle on this market.
Yeah.
By the end, you'll be able to impress your friends with all your Bellingham housing knowledge.
Absolutely. Redfin really is an amazing tool for understanding what's happening on the ground.
So what's the overall feel of the Bellingham market right now? What kind of picture are we painting from this data?
You're entering a market that's red hot. Think multiple offers and houses being snatched up in less than 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
In September 2024, the median sale price was $641,000, an 8.6% jump from last year.
Wow.
And the average home spent a mere 8 days on the market, down from 9 last year.
Wow, that's a fast-moving market. I imagine that makes it pretty tough on buyers, right?
Absolutely. Buyers need to be prepared to act quickly and potentially waive some contingencies.
Right.
Those are conditions that need to be met before the sale is finalized, like a satisfactory home inspection.
Redfin has that compete score. What does that tell us about how fierce the competition is in Bellingham?
It's a scale of 0 to 100, and Bellingham comes in at a whopping 86. Very competitive indeed.
Wow.
This score translates into waived contingencies, homes selling at or above list price, and super fast sales. Hot properties are being snapped up in as little as 4 days.
Wow, so Bellingham is clearly desirable. What about nearby areas like Ferndale and Sudden Valley? Are they seeing similar trends?
They are competitive, with compete scores of 79 and 81 respectively.
Okay.
But Bellingham is definitely in a league of its own right now.
Interesting. So we know Bellingham is hot, but who's fueling this fire? Are people leaving or coming to Bellingham?
Yeah.
Where are they coming from and where are they going?
This is where the data gets interesting. You might assume people are fleeing Bellingham. More people are actually moving ARN than OUT.
Really?
In the last quarter, 42% of Redfin users in Bellingham were looking to leave. 58% were searching for homes within the area.
That is surprising. So who are these newcomers? Where are they coming from?
The data points to Seattle, Los Angeles, and San Francisco as the top 3 metros sending residents to Bellingham.
Wow.
It's easy to see why. Mountain views,
Yeah.
a charming downtown, access to nature.
Sounds idyllic. But all this desirability must come at a cost, right? What's the cost of living like in Bellingham?
Bellingham's beauty does come at a price. The median home price is a hefty 50% higher than the national average, and the overall cost of living is 23% higher.
So potential buyers need to balance the dream with their budget.
Exactly. As you're exploring the market, you really need to ask yourself if Bellingham aligns with your financial goals.
That's great advice. And speaking of things to consider, let's talk about climate risk. It's top of mind for many home buyers these days.
Right.
How does Bellingham fare?
That's a great point. And Redfin does a good job highlighting this information. Climate change is having an impact on real estate, and it's important to be aware of the risks. In Bellingham, the flood risk is moderate. About 6% of properties at risk of severe flooding in the next 30 years.
Okay, so a moderate risk, but something to be aware of. What about wildfires? Especially with them being so prevalent in the news lately.
Wildfire risk in Bellingham is also considered moderate, with 29% of properties potentially impacted.
Okay.
The good news is that the risk from wind is minimal, and the heat risk is considered minor.
That's reassuring. So it seems like Bellingham offers a relatively balanced climate outlook compared to some other areas.
Relatively, yes.
Yeah.
It's always a good idea to delve into the specific risk factors for any property you're considering, and Redfin provides those details, which I think is really helpful.
That is helpful. So we've covered affordability, climate. What about getting around in Bellingham? Is it car dependent, walker friendly, a biker's paradise? What insights does Redfin offer about transportation?
If you're someone who loves to walk everywhere, Bellingham might not be the ideal spot. It has a walk score of just 37, which means it's pretty car dependent.
Okay, so maybe not for the hardcore pedestrian. What about other options like public transportation or biking?
The transit score suggests there are some public transportation options, but it's not the most comprehensive or convenient system. On the flip side, Bellingham gets a decent bike score, so cycling is definitely a viable way to get around.
So someone considering a move to Bellingham should factor in their preferred mode of transportation and how that aligns with what the city offers.
Absolutely. Bellingham has its strengths: the natural beauty, the charming atmosphere, the proximity to larger cities. But it's all about finding the right fit for your lifestyle and priorities.
Great point. And that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into the Bellingham housing market. We've uncovered some pretty fascinating insights. A hot market, a surprising influx of new residents, the cost of living considerations, and even the impact of climate change.
And there's still more to come. In Part 2, we'll delve deeper into specific neighborhoods and recent home sales. We'll even explore what features can increase your property value in Bellingham.
So stay tuned. We'll be back with more insights into the Bellingham housing market in just a bit.
Yeah, welcome back to our deep dive into the Bellingham housing market.
Yeah,
In Part 1, we set the stage, but now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty.
I like it.
Let's zoom in on some specific neighborhoods you might be interested in.
Yes, let's get hyperlocal. What are some of the most popular areas within Bellingham?
Redfin helpfully breaks down market trends by neighborhood, which is great for potential buyers.
Yeah.
Some of the standouts include Happy Valley, Safe Home, Barclay, South Bellingham, and Edgemoor.
I've definitely heard those names before. What makes them so appealing to people looking to buy in Bellingham?
Each offers a unique blend of amenities and characteristics.
Okay.
For example, Happy Valley is known for its family-friendly vibe, while Semhome attracts those who love its proximity to Western Washington University and its vibrant art scene.
It's like picking the perfect neighborhood to match your lifestyle, but let's get down to brass tacks. Everyone wants to know what homes are actually selling for in these areas. Can we take a look at some recent sales?
Absolutely. Redfin provides data on recent sales, giving us a real-world glimpse into the market.
Okay.
For example, a two-bedroom, two-bathroom house on Berkeley Meadows Circle recently sold for $586,500. It was on the market for 29 days and went for 2% over the list price.
That's really helpful to see. It gives you a concrete idea of what buyers are paying. Anything else jump out at you from the recent sales data?
A four-bedroom, two-bathroom house on Gladstone Street sold for $523,000 after just 14 days on the market. It even went for 7% over the asking price.
Wow, 7% over asking. It makes you wonder how intense those bidding wars must get. Okay, so we have a good understanding of what homes are going for, but for those of us not quite ready to buy yet, is there anything we can do to make our current homes more attractive to future buyers?
That's a smart question. And Redfin offers some insights into what features add value to homes in Bellingham. Think energy efficiency, updated kitchens and bathrooms, and those coveted outdoor living spaces.
So basically making your house the envy of every HGTV viewer, blending cozy, modern, and inviting all in one.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what would make me fall in love with this house? And go from there.
Love that. We've covered neighborhoods, recent sales, and even tips for boosting home value. Now let's switch gears to a crucial factor for many home buyers, especially those with families. Schools. What does the data tell us about the educational landscape in Bellingham?
Redfin's partnership with great schools comes in handy here. They provide ratings and reviews for schools in the Bellingham area, offering valuable insights for families.
So parents can do their research on schools right alongside their house hunting. Sounds efficient.
Exactly. For instance, Silver Beach Elementary School scores an impressive 9 out of 10 on grade schools, with glowing reviews from parents.
Oh.
Other well-regarded schools include Parkview Elementary and Wade King Elementary, both receiving a solid 7 out of 10.
That's great to know. It seems like Bellingham has some really strong educational options. Of course, families will want to do their own research and visit schools, but having these ratings readily available is a great starting point.
I agree. It's one less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
Doing the already stressful process of buying a home.
Yeah, no kidding.
Speaking of things that can cause stress, let's circle back to the topic of climate change.
Okay.
We touched on it earlier, but now let's dig deeper into how it's specifically impacting Bellingham's housing market.
Yes, let's unpack that a bit more. I'm particularly interested in how climate risk translates to individual properties.
Yeah.
Is there more to it than just those general flood and fire risk maps we see?
You're right to ask that. Redfin goes beyond those general maps and provides detailed information about climate risks for specific properties, valuable information for potential buyers.
So instead of just knowing that a percentage of properties in Bellingham are at risk, I can actually see how a specific house I'm interested in might be affected. Exactly. They've partnered with First Street Foundation to create detailed flood factor and fire factor assessments.
Interesting.
These scores consider a property's elevation, its proximity to water sources, and historical weather patterns to give a much more accurate picture of individual risk.
That's incredible. So I could be looking at two houses that seem very similar on paper, but then discover that one has a much higher flood factor score. That could definitely influence my decision.
It's all about being informed. and making choices that align with your comfort level and long-term plans.
This is so helpful. I'm guessing this is information people should definitely check out when browsing Redfin.
Absolutely. It could save you a lot of potential heartache and financial stress down the road. It's another example of how Redfin really empowers home buyers with the information they need.
We've covered a lot of ground in the second part of our Bellingham deep dive. Popular neighborhoods, recent sales data, school ratings, and even those hyperlocal climate risk assessments. It's really starting to paint a detailed picture of the Bellingham housing market. And there's still more to uncover. In the final part, we'll wrap things up by diving into some interesting migration trends and transportation options in Bellingham, leaving you with some final thoughts to consider as you continue your housing journey.
I'm excited to hear more. Stay tuned for our final installment coming up next.
Welcome back to the final part of our Bellingham housing market deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the competitive landscape to specific neighborhoods, school ratings, and climate risks. But before we wrap up, there are a few more interesting pieces of the puzzle to explore.
Yeah, and these final pieces might just surprise you.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about more people moving into Bellingham than out? Let's shift our focus to where those leaving Bellingham are choosing to go.
Yes, I'm curious about that. If they're leaving this Pacific Northwest haven, where are they headed? Sunnier climates,
Yeah.
bigger cities? What does the data reveal?
The top 3 destinations for those leaving Bellingham might surprise you. Wenatchee, Washington,
Okay.
Orlando, Florida,
All right.
and Ellensburg, Washington. Wenatchee. That's an interesting one. I wouldn't have guessed that. What do you think is driving that trend?
It's a good question. Wenatchee is known for its apple orchards, sunny weather,
Yeah.
and a more affordable cost of living. Perhaps some people are seeking a change of pace, a different climate, or maybe they're drawn to the agricultural opportunities in the area.
That makes sense. And Orlando, that's a classic choice for sunshine and theme park thrills. But Ellensburg, that one is a bit unexpected. What's the draw there?
Ellensburg has its own unique charm, with a historic downtown, beautiful hiking trails, and a smaller, more laid-back atmosphere.
Okay.
Maybe some Bellingham residents are looking for that smaller town vibe, while still being relatively close to their previous home.
It seems like there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to relocation choices. People are drawn to different things, and their reasons for moving are as varied as the individuals themselves.
Absolutely. And this diversity of preferences is also reflected in Bellingham itself. Earlier, we talked about Bellingham's walk score and how it's not the most walkable city. But what about other transportation options? How does Bellingham fare when it comes to public transportation and biking?
We touched on the transit score and the bike score. Can you elaborate on those a bit more? What does this mean for someone who might be thinking about moving to Bellingham?
Bellingham does have a public transportation system with buses connecting different parts of the city.
Okay.
However, the transit score suggests that it's not as comprehensive or convenient as what you might find in a larger city. So if you rely heavily on public transit,
Yeah.
you might find Bellingham a bit challenging.
That's good to know. So maybe not the best choice for someone who wants to ditch the car altogether. But what about those who enjoy biking? Is Bellingham a good city for cyclists?
Bellingham actually has a decent bike score, indicating it's relatively bike-friendly with dedicated bike lanes and paths.
Okay.
If you enjoy an active lifestyle and prefer to get around on 2 wheels, Bellingham might be a great fit.
It's all about finding the right match, isn't it? The place that aligns with your values, your lifestyle, and your transportation preferences.
Exactly. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Bellingham housing market. We've covered a lot of ground, from the big picture trends down to the finer details. I hope this information has been valuable for you.
It certainly has been for me. We've gained insights into Bellingham's competitive market, explored different neighborhoods, delved into school ratings and climate risks, and even uncovered some intriguing migration patterns. It's amazing how much we were able to learn from just this one set of data.
Remember, data is a powerful tool, especially in the world of real estate. But it's just one piece of the puzzle. The best way to truly understand a place is to experience it for yourself. Visit Bellingham. Explore the neighborhoods. Talk to the locals. And get a feel for the community.
That's great advice. Ultimately, buying a home is a personal decision. There's no right or wrong answer, only what feels right for you.
Said.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our Bellingham deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and helpful as you navigate your housing journey.
Thanks for joining us. Happy house hunting.